I have died and been reborn more times than I can remember, each life more informed, more attuned than the last. I believe we all face such ego deaths throughout our lives, some less disruptive and some that shatter us entirely. The person we thought we were annihilated in a matter of seconds. This is the story of Out of the Grave. I find it fascinating that our unconscious minds make decisions long before we do. My creativity, which I view as the playground of my unconscious mind, was screaming out of the grave long before King of None even existed. It started 3 years ago, in the summer of 2022. I had been releasing melodic bass music as Digital Skies for the past few years, and I just started an EP concept called Out of the Grave. This EP never saw the light of day because I didn't really know what to do with it. It explored a new vocal-driven, cinematic electronic direction that hadn't fully baked. For the time being, I threw it in the maybe I'll work on this later folder, and I didn't give it much attention. Little did I know these songs would be the first exercises in a new style of writing. A style that eventually matured into Out of the Grave. Here's a few early demos from this EP. Fast forward 1 year, I'm at the peak of my burnout as Digital Skies and decide to quit music altogether. Well, electronic music. I could never really quit music. It felt completely dead to me, and I couldn't even enjoy listening to EDM for pleasure anymore. The genre I knew and loved since I was in middle school lost all appeal in a matter of days, a genre I had tied my identity to. But it went beyond music. My professional career was blooming and my life was the best it had ever been, on the surface. Deep down, I simply felt nothing. The highs and the lows of my life became one and the same, and everything kind of lost its color. Worst of all, I realized that the whole Digital Skies project was a failed exercise at trying to find my voice through music, my real voice. At this low time in my life, a little band called Sleep Token released Take Me Back to Eden. Saying this album changed my life would be an understatement. It changed the entire way I thought of music. It had so much soul in it, so much pain, and on top of that, their message transcended genre in a way that I had never experienced before. More than anything else, it held a mirror to my art and showed me everything I had failed to deliver. Part of this realization was recognizing that good music doesn't have to hide behind production. My perspective shifted dramatically, and I started going into the studio each day with a new mentality. I told myself, all I need is a piano or a guitar and my voice. Nothing else is really required to create the art that I long to create. And it worked. Not only did it work, it opened the floodgates of my heart. Years of pain and subdued rage poured out of me day after day as I wrote more and more music. Genre became irrelevant. I was just creating with a blank slate. I wrote about everyone who had ever hurt me or wronged me. I wrote about my experience growing up in organized religion. I wrote about past relationships, and I wrote about my failures. I wrote about unhealed wounds from childhood, and most of all, I wrote about everything I hated about myself in excruciating detail. It might sound destructive, but these were the first steps of my healing. I had repressed my shadow for so long that it was bursting at the seams, and music became my outlet. Through songwriting, I realized that I had spent the last 10 years of my life pretending that I wasn't an angry person. I thought that if I expressed my anger, I would be no better than the people who hurt me most throughout my childhood. If I expressed my rage, it would spit in the face of the carefully crafted image I had worked so hard to create, a man who shows no emotion at all. It would destroy who I thought I was. And that last part, I was right about. It would destroy the false self that I had built, but I didn't know how badly I needed that. As my musical catharsis blazed onward, I began to accept this darkness within me. In fact, I started to lean into it, digging deep into the darkest places of my mind and exposing everything that I worked so hard to repress. Day by day, this immense pressure I felt in my body began to diminish. Day after day, I expressed all the violence that was buried underneath my false ego until there was nothing left except me, the real me, not the twisted version I had become, full of unresolved hate. I was finally free, and not only that, I felt more powerful than ever. I had become someone who could feel and express anger without hurting others or myself. I was more synchronized and whole than ever before in my life, but we'll get to that in a minute. Here's a glimpse at some of the very dark music I was creating during this ego death experience. The freedom and wholeness I experienced after releasing so much darkness is difficult to describe. It felt like rest after days, weeks of treading water. What would I do with my new life? The options felt limitless. I started spending more time outdoors, I visited family, and spent precious time with friends. I started dating and I fell in love. I was living for the first time in years. As the months went by, I started to listen to electronic music again. I was getting inspired by innovators in the genre like Celestial Void, Dream War, Last Heroes, Swarm, and Blue Stolly, to name a few. I have to shout out Celestial Void here. Eric's support in our long conversations really opened up my mind to the idea of creating electronic music again. His incredible gift for songwriting and storytelling showed me what was possible in electronic music. Hybrid bass music would never die while people like Eric were creating. And so it began. Slowly, I started to blend my favorite electronic elements into the new, darker music I was working on. Concepts from the Out of the Grave EP re-emerged, but this time they were colored in a brand new light. Heavy guitar sections evolved into glorious orchestras and synths as my newfound freedom allowed my creativity to blossom for the first time. Genre became completely irrelevant. All that mattered to me was the message.
So break the chains.
With this new sound starting to solidify and creativity ablaze within me, a story began to take shape. And so I wrote an album about a man who was consumed by darkness, faced death, and was reborn. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to my art. Thank you for being a part of Out of the Grave.